This pro wrestling talent and bodybuilder is from Swansea, Wales of the United Kingdom. He's wrestled for FCW, OVW, TNA Impact Wrestling, Japan's Wrestle One, Full Throttle Pro, and more, traveling the world, Japan, Germany, and his homeland, Wales. A massive, impressive physique, he learned to use his power, his strength, in the eclectic and unusual world of an athletic and entertaining professional wrestling. Currently featured in a July 2020 documentary release, Generation Iron, Natty for Life. The Freak, the Welsh Warrior, Rob Terry remains busy and powerful. Thank you, Rob. I gotta ask you first off, Franco, Ferrigno, or Arnold?
I gotta say something before I even answer that. That was one hell of an introduction, my friend. I loved that. That was awesome. The entire time I had a smile on my face. So, whatever live event I have next, I want to book you specifically just to do that, because that was fantastic. To answer your question, all those guys, you know, the Franco, Lou Ferrigno, and was there a third you said?
Arnold.
Right? Arnold, and that's the one we can't forget. All those guys were really much icons for me as I was growing up. So, obviously, I'm going to say Arnold, but I mean, all three of those really fell in the mold for me. You know, they were just larger-than-life guys, and in my early influences in bodybuilding, they really played a big part towards that.
Were there other influences in bodybuilding, or are those mainly the three? I mean, there are so many great bodybuilders.
No, you know, there was so much, Jim. Like, you know, growing up as a kid, I tell everyone, you know, my physical transformation started around 13 years old, where I came to America doing the Disney park thing in Orlando. And, you know, we stayed in a resort, and I had a gym, and I was training legs. And that was the first time I actually experienced a pump training my legs. And I thought that was the one thing that was going to get me to where I was, you know, wanted to be physically. But the mental transformation, that really started a long time before that. And I wouldn't say it was those guys specifically right there, because maybe at that age I really didn't probably know who they were. For the exception of Arnold, and the only reason why I say that is because I was born in the 80s, and in the 80s was just, you know, it was full of action movies that were just larger-than-life personalities. You had the WWF, you had, you know, I was British, so I had British Gladiators. Everything to me, everything that I was watching and surrounded by had one thing in common, and that was that these guys that I was watching, they all had incredible physiques. So that kind of molded and sculpted my mind, even at that age. Even the toys that I played with, you know what I mean, like the He-Man toys and all that kind of stuff, they were all jacked. They were like pro bodybuilders, you know what I mean? So that was a huge influence on me there. The movies that I watched, you know, I say I was young, but, you know, I watched a lot of movies that were 18 rated. Me and my friends did. And a lot of those movies had all the action stars in, from Jean-Claude Van Damme to Schwarzenegger, Dolph Lundgren, and the list goes on, you know. And again, those personalities, those storylines, they captivated me. And they all had that one concept in continuity, and that was that they were all in amazing physiques. So that really captivated me from a young age. But it really wasn't until I started training in my local gym and everything else that I started seeing the magazines and understanding and knowing who Lou Ferrigno was, and knowing who he's escaping my...
That's okay, Franco Columbu.
Franco Columbu, yeah. So all these guys, you know, and many more people, you know, like even people I've met today, were all in the magazine. So I was just a huge fan of the industry, and it was a huge motivation mechanism for me when I first started training.
What was your size, as far as the dimensions, when you first started wrestling?
When I first started wrestling, so I got signed with the WWE. I got signed in 2006, and then I came to America. It took a long time to sort of the visas and everything else. It's a tricky situation, but I came over towards the end of 2007, and that's where I actually started with the FCW. So when I came over, I mean, you know, I'd been doing natural bodybuilding shows in 2006, so I was always continuously in shape, as I try to maintain now. So I was roughly, I was about 280 pounds when I first started wrestling with the FCW. So that was my weight then.
What about like the arms, the chest, the dimensions of your body at that time?
They're pretty consistent. You know, I'm looking at like a 21-inch chest. Man, it's hard for me to go shopping. Going shopping with me is a miserable time. Something like a 56-inch chest. I'm not 100% keen on my dimensions, to be all that honest with you. I don't know them off by hand, but they're just pretty consistent. But being 6'4" and, you know, like 280 pounds consistently throughout the year, it's a hard deal to go shopping, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, what is it? Do you have to have special ordered special shirts and jerseys and just different dress tops and things like that?
Yeah, tops for the most part aren't too bad. You know, I'll just order a size up and just hope that it fits and however it's tailored. But when it comes to pants, then that's an issue, you know what I'm saying? Because a lot of the time they're tailored with a narrow leg. So I've really got to go up in size, and sometimes the waist, when you do that, it's a little too big, so you've got to bring it down. So there's just some of the things in the bodybuilding world that, you know, people think it's all great, but really it's a little bit of a hindrance, should I say.
What is your size like now?
Right now, so I weighed yesterday, and I'm 278. So, yeah, I'm just trying to sort of, first of all, decide again whether I'm going to compete this year, just because of the way that the year's, you know, been so far, a lot of shows and being cancelled due to the COVID crisis and everything else. But, you know, I've had a really good off-season, and when I do contests, I do drop weight, because in the natural bodybuilding world, these guys you can guarantee that they're in incredible shape, you know what I mean? So for me, I've always got the size, but for me to compete with these athletes, I've really got to come down somewhat to get that ultimate crisp conditioning. So, yeah, so it's been a good off-season, just trying to get that weight up, which is 280 is my norm. So I'm just a little below that right now.
And then the arms, the chest, have you been pretty consistent with the size?
Yeah, so since I was I always remember that when I was around 20 years old, that I hit that 280 mark, which is a young age to get that, but it's always been a consistent. I did go a lot heavier towards when I was 23 to 24 years old, but it was a little too much weight, especially with the wrestling, because you need to be pretty agile as well. So 280 pounds for me is a good weight where I can, you know, be as athletic as I need to. I do everything and just be comfortable in that weight.
The COVID, how has that changed, or has it changed the training regimen?
I've been extremely fortunate. So I'm a firefighter here in St. Petersburg, for the city of St. Petersburg, should I say. So fitness is very, very a hot topic with them. So at every fire station that you could possibly go to, they have pretty much a full weights room, if you like, you know, with some cable systems and everything there. So that was my saving grace, you know, on shift and then going off shift. I'd be able to get a workout in when all the other gyms really, you know, tried to stay open as long as they could, but one by one they dwindled down because of the situation. So that was kind of my savior for that. So it's definitely been a challenge. Just really had to focus on nutrition and just do the best that I could with what I had in that situation. But I'm just grateful and happy that everything is somewhat back to the norm with that now. And obviously there's you know, regulations and things we've all got to do to keep each other safe, but just happy to go back and go to my local gym and, you know, just do what I do and do what I love.
Rob, you're a firefighter.
Yes, sir.
God bless you. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, that's so crazy. How did that's interesting. I never knew this. How did that start? What made Rob Terry decide, okay, I want to save lives, I want to help people, I want to be a firefighter?
Yeah, you know, so things like that have always been really powerful for me, you know what I mean? It's just being an influence, number one, way back when. You know, being a professional wrestler and everything else is something, you know, it's a great, you become a great influence for a lot of people. So even though you might play this character, you know what I mean, when you're on the stage and all that kind of stuff, you are responsible for being a role model, okay? In in my eyes anyway. So from an early age, a few of my friends were firefighters back where I'm from in Swansea, and it was a cool thing. And I thought, man, this is something I'd really love to do. But at the time, I was giddy with all these unrealistic things that I can now say that I've accomplished. But so I don't think I put my 100% into doing that. And to be honest with you, I'm really happy that I didn't, because as much as I love my hometown, it would probably mean that I'd still be there. But when I came out of a contract, a mutual agreement with Impact Wrestling, I had some downtime, and I was in a gym, and there was this guy, and he was training, and he was in full gear. He had all the bunker gear on. He got FCBA, which is the mask, and he had the bottle in his back that he's breathing from. He was just, trying to condition his body to work out in that environment, And everyone was looking at him like he was a dragon with two heads, and they were giving him this look. And I thought, this is my chance. I really want to do this. And, I bugged him for quite a while, asking him, how do you get into it? Because, for anyone listening, it's really, really a process to actually get in, even to the training part, and then to get hired onto a job. There's a lot of bases that you've got to cover. So I was really fortunate. I put myself through everything, and I really enjoyed it. And I met a lot of good friends on the way who were firefighters. Some of them were actually previous wrestlers as well. So it was just something that I thought, this is for me, and it's absolutely amazing. And like I say, going back to playing a character and being an influence to sort of help people and navigate them in the right direction, these guys that I work with, they're willing to do whatever it takes, to make someone's worst day, to do what they can to make it better. Do you know what I'm saying? So everyone that I work with is a huge role model for me, and I absolutely love my job so much.
Did you ever have any other firefighters or people, even if you're out and about and you're on duty and you have the firefighter gear or uniform on, and they're like, wait a minute, do you wrestle? Are you?
It's funny you say that. So yeah, that has happened a few times. So we've gone into maybe help a situation, and I look around, I'm like, man, there's a lot of wrestling posters going on. You know what I'm saying? And maybe they'll say, hey, aren't you that guy from TNA? And you know what I mean? And yeah. So it's a funny situation for me, you know what I mean? But it's all good, and I love every single second of it.
Yeah, that is so cool. That is so great. I can say, Rob Terry saved my house. And it's such interesting, because when you mention firefighting and what you all do, put your lives on the line like that, in training, did being a bodybuilder, did pro wrestling training even, did any of that help you as far as firefighting training? And is it such a different type of training?
It's extremely demanding, but I knew it was going to be anyway. I was already prepared for that. I always am. And, back when I first started wrestling, it was the same thing then. When I was signed at the FCW, I remember, we were training 5 days a week, and every single day I would come back and my body would be aching, because everything that they put you through was just so physically demanding. It was almost like, I'm sure they weren't, but it was almost like they were trying to break you to see if you wanted it, you know what I mean? And I pay credit to that, to bodybuilding, really, because bodybuilding for me has always been and always will such a discipline, and I mean, no disrespect to any other sports or anything like that, but you go to soccer practice or American football practice, and you're giving it your all. You're giving 100% for X amount of time, let's say 3 hours, you know what I'm saying? Bodybuilding for me is something that, yes, you give it everything in the gym, you leave nothing behind, but then as soon as you come home, you can't switch off. You've really got to be on your A game. You just change it into a different hat. Now it's all nutrition. You got to make sure everything's balanced up. It's something that never stops. It's a discipline that is a constant, and that's what I love about bodybuilding. And I've been able to really apply that to everything else that I've done. So that's just been a great thing for me, and being able to use that and all the strength and everything else and develop it into different fields.
How big is bodybuilding in Wales?
It's pretty big, and I think it's growing a lot. There's never been a shortage of shows. I remember when I was first in the gyms, and I was a young kid, and the big guys at the gym, they couldn't believe how big I was at like 16 and going into 17, and they were on me all the time. They're like, hey, when are you going to compete? When are you going to do a show? There's a show coming up, Mr. Wales, are you going to do it? And I was like, no way. There's no way you're going to get me in one of those posing suits and to jump on stage and do that stuff. Well, a year later, I did. It was just one of those things, But yeah, there are a lot of shows generally, as there are here in America, that,
Is pro wrestling big in Wales?
It's huge. It is. I can't comment now. Obviously, I've been living over here for such a long time, but when I say that, professional wrestling is huge over there, yes. But what I mean is that there weren't many schools to learn how to become a professional wrestler, and that was one of the things for me that was extremely frustrating. I was a fan of professional wrestling from way back when, and I remember in 2000 I was working at a store, and 6 of my friends, we all jumped on the phones because WWE was coming into town, and we all wanted to go see the show. Well, the show basically sold out within a matter of 30 minutes. So we were all on the phone scrambling to get tickets, and I got the tickets. And I remember, one of the guys jumped up screaming, I got him. So we went to go see a show. And when we went to the show, we were situated on the ramp, okay? So for me, I was kind of a little bit disappointed with that because I wanted to be ringside. But I didn't realize that those seats were actually the best seats that I could have possibly had. And the reason for that is, and I consider myself a very reserved wrestling fan as well, I'd stay up, really late watching the pay-per-views, and we'd always watch Raw and SmackDown and all the other products. But when these professional wrestlers came down the ramp, I was, like I said, as a big kid, this is around when I was 20 years old, so I was like around 280 then, whatever not, and, bodybuilding, and I was all into that. So I was really just comparing my physique to these guys, and I was like, man, I'm bigger than this guy, I'm saying? I can do this. And then Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, The Big Show, all these guys, I remember coming down the ramp, and they would single me out, and they would get in my face, and they would talk smack to me, and that was crazy, because we became friends when I moved to America, so that was another full circle right there. But, I lost my mind, I had my top off, I was flexing, and I was like, what just happened to me, what I'm saying? I knew I was a fan, but then I became like a super fan all of a sudden. And then we drove home. It was from England, so the drive was like about 4 hours for me. And I remember not saying a single word on that way back. It was the longest journey I think I've ever been on in my life. And the reason was because I knew so bad that that's what I wanted to do. I just didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to get there and what to do, the places to train. I didn't have any of those resources available to me. So I drove to one of the other cities around me after the show, and I went to a wrestling school, and I thought it was, good and legit. It was really bad. Knowing what I know now, it was not very good at all, and it actually closed down 2 weeks after I went. So I continued on my natural bodybuilding journey and doing shows and everything else like that. And then I turned professional in 2006, and I was at the weigh-in of the show, and I had a WWE scout just come up to me randomly, and she said, hey, you're a big guy, you got a good look, would you consider being contracted with the WWE? And my jaw hit the floor, and it did not come back up. And that was one of the best experiences that I think I've ever had, because it was just such a combination of turning professional and then having this opportunity put to me, which was a lifelong dream, So it was just an amazing time of my life.
Do you remember who that was? They had an ex-pro golfer who was in talent relations.
I'll never forget her name. And, we're friends on Facebook and everything else. So, yeah, Jane Levshin.
I think she was a pro golfer.
Maybe, I don't know that. All I know is that she asked me to go back out of this room, and I had to cut a promo on Triple H.
Wow.
And, she filled out a bunch of stuff, took my details, and I was on cloud 9. That's all I can remember of that.
Oh, what was it like doing that promo?
I think I was in shock from the moment that she announced who she was to the moment that she said goodbye. And, I wasn't going to turn down an opportunity. I can't even remember what I said. I think I just gave it my best shot, knowing what I knew at the time. And it was just a crazy small moment in my life that I'll never forget that.
And it was Jane Geddes, right?
Jane Lenshin.
Oh, okay. All right. Because it was Jane Geddes. Jane Geddes was the one that was in talent relations there, was the golfer. So that was, it probably was someone different. But that is so cool. That is such a cool story that just randomly, and that was in Wales, correct?
This was actually in Hollywood, California.
Oh, it was here. Okay, so it was here in the States. Yeah. All right.
It was, yeah.
Now that is just so cool. I wanted to ask one other thing, and then want to get to the movie, and then one more thing and wrap this up. So you mentioned some of the larger than life, like there you are at a show in Wales or in the UK, and here they're coming down, and Scott Hall's pointing you out, and Big Show, and all these larger than life personalities. Were you into Hogan? Were you into Ultimate Warrior? Psycho Sid? I mean, these guys that were just massive. Were those some of the ones that you took to because of their body types?
Exactly. So like I said to you, when I briefly touched on it, I said, the wrestling, the WWF, what it was back in the day, all these larger than life characters, I was compelled and drawn to all the bigger dudes. That was just the big guys is where I was at, like even The Undertaker, Hulk Hogan, The Ultimate Warrior for sure. You know what I mean? And even going forward, Dave Bautista, Brock Lesnar, the list can go on and on. The Legion of Doom, just all those guys, you know what I mean? It was just so cool for me to see these just huge human beings, and it would just really motivate me in my game to step up my game, just be the best that I could. I wanted to be like these guys, when I was watching it. So it was just a really, really cool thing for me. And then to meet them further down the line and actually work with these guys, that was just amazing.
Now, Rob, you're in this documentary, Generation Iron, Natty for Life. And it's very interesting because it's a look at the natural bodybuilding world. So tell us how you got involved with this project, and tell us a little bit about the project.
Right. So I got involved in this project because I guess I was competing with the IFBB, the PNBA as a natural pro, and I had won the natural Olympia for 2 years in a row, and this was my third title defense. So it was such a great, it is a great opportunity for me to be part of this film, and it's for many reasons. It really is. Number one, just for this to really open up natural bodybuilding to the world, to make people aware of it. For me to be as an influence, if you like, to other people to realize, yes, this is something that you can do, because the other side of bodybuilding is not for everyone, and it's definitely not something for me. Even though that like I said at the beginning, I do support bodybuilding as a full realm. I was a fan of that since day one. But ultimately, for me, it's really about telling my story, which, especially the people in the wrestling industry, I really don't feel that they fully understand. But from an early age, I was 8 years old and I had a kidney removed. It was a pretty big deal for me, And when I came out from that, only having one kidney, I didn't have a replacement, so I still have the one now. It was pretty clear that whatever I did from there on, I really had to look after myself. And especially when I started seeing all these people that were in shape, and I was drawn to that, and I started getting in shape, and then I started competing. My parents knew straight away, there was no option for me other than the natural world. And, I started making all these gains, being a lifetime natural bodybuilder. And it was just something that was so true to me, and it was a choice that I made to stay that way. And, I carried on doing it, and I carried on competing as a natural bodybuilder. And there were so many opportunities that opened up for me because of that. I would have never got signed by the WWE if it wasn't for that, because that was the premise that I was signed, being a natural athlete. And then everything else, and then, competing in the natural Olympia, and being featured on Generation Iron, and having the chance to tell my story, and my family tell my story on there. It's something that's like a full circle of greatness for me. I'm so happy to be part of it.
Well, Generation Iron Natty for Life also features famous natural bodybuilder and former American Gladiator Mike O'Hearn, and also top bodybuilder Kai Greene. And it explores the controversial world of professional natural bodybuilding with top pros such as them, such as Rob Terry, who we're talking to. And can the league guarantee that these competitors are truly natural? So, did you get to see the film, the documentary yet, and what did you think of it?
I have not. So all I've seen are the trailers that Generation Iron released. I very much look forward to seeing the film. I believe it's what day is we Monday, so this coming Friday will be the release. So yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I'm very much looking forward to it. And again, I'm sure it'll paint a positive image on the natural bodybuilding world.
Yeah, that was my next. I was going to lead to that because Generation Iron, the series, the docudrama, docu-series, has done very well, and they do a very good job. So it would not slight one way per se or the other. They would be very fair and just very open and real about what is happening. And when you say natural bodybuilder, this is something different because you are Mr. Natural Olympia, which is different from Mr. Olympia, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And the main difference is natural. That is the key right there, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 100% natural.
How?
Yeah, that's...
Well, I was going to lead to, how would you compare to bodybuilders, because your physique is phenomenal, and others too, that are natural bodybuilders. How do you think, though, that the comparison would be between natural and those that are enhanced another way?
So, I've had this, when working with Impact Wrestling as a professional wrestler and stuff, I got the opportunity to represent the company at the Arnold Classic, which, for people who don't know, is a huge expo that is ultimately fitness. And, I've had the privilege to meet some of the former and even current Mr. Olympias. I'll say it how it is. I'm a pretty big guy by most standards. But when you really get next to these Mr. Olympias, they are monsters. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they're not necessarily going to be as tall as I am, but for what they lack in height, they definitely do not lack in terms of muscle density and thickness. So they are huge human beings, and being a natural guy, I've got to really, I understand that maybe I'm never going to be that big naturally. It's just not going to happen. But for me personally, being a natural pro bodybuilder is about just bringing my genetics to their absolute maximum potential. And the greatest thing for me there is that it's something that's extremely consistent. It never changes. And, I really do, with all due respect, feel that there is a longevity with that I really favor. And given my situation of having one kidney, it's the option that goes forward for me to do this as long as I can.
Yeah, having the one kidney, obviously, keeping natural is going to better yourself. I'm not a doctor, nor play one on TV, so, but it's better for yourself. And this docudrama, it's 107 minutes, so it's not long, but it's a good length,
right,
so people can watch that, and it will be available July 31st on VOD, Video on Demand. So that's really cool, too. And it's just interesting because you said you were at the Arnold Classic, and I'm wondering then, did you get to meet Arnold?
I did not meet him at the Arnold Classic, but I've met Arnold 3 times, and it's a really, really cool experience for me every single time. He's just a guy that I've looked up to for such a young age, and it's always good to meet him. I met him one time ago, actually it was this past year in Gold's Gym, when I was doing the last defense of the Natural Olympia, and then I met him 2 other times at a special event. So it was really cool to meet him. I didn't have a whole bunch of time to talk to him about too much stuff because he's a very very busy individual. But again, being such a huge, true fan, it's always a good situation to be in.
And he's a big fan of wrestling, and he's a WWE Hall of Famer.
I know, right? Yeah, that's pretty cool.
All right, Rob, listen, I appreciate the time. I'm going to touch one more thing, and then we'll let you get going. And I hope, Rob, we can do this again, because there's so much pro wrestling that I'd like to talk to you about as well. But I want to key on one area in particular, because I think, to me, this is so interesting, and your journey, like most pro wrestlers, has been a roller coaster ride. You're still competing, well, with COVID, but you're competing in Japan. You've been doing very well in Japan, but the area that I want to talk to you about is this. Ohio Valley Wrestling. You were killing it in OVW. You were OVW heavyweight champ twice. You were OVW TV champ. You were an OVW Southern Tag Team champ with Jesse Godderz, another muscular type guy, and also Rudy Switchblade. Don't know much about Rudy Switchblade, but that's okay. Nightmare Cup Tag Team Tournament with Marcus Anthony, and you were the 8th OVW Triple Crown champion. OVW was a developmental territory for WWE, but then later also for Impact Wrestling. And when you were in TNA in the British Invasion, which is really cool, with Nick Aldis, Magnus, and also with, Doug
Williams.
Thank you so much, Doug Williams. What a great technical wrestler. One of the best technical wrestlers. William Regal, Doug Williams. There's some out there you put up there. But anyway, so you're sent to OVW, and I don't know at the time if you're thinking, I was on Impact, and now I'm getting sent to developmental. How did that work for you when you had to take that step? Did you feel it was a step back, or did you feel like, okay, this is okay? But then you were just killing it in OVW, though.
Yeah. So it depends on I'll tell you how my mindset was, because that will answer the question. But ultimately, I got catapulted into this industry like purely on my luck, like I said. And I really, really wanted to get into this as much as I could. So I was always put on TV pretty much, or maybe should I say, sooner than I should have. So I saw OVW as an opportunity for me. It was an opportunity where, like I say, it was a training ground for the WWE, or, back in the day when, all these legends, I'll say it, they were training there, and their game got elevated. And I saw that as a way to elevate my game, because, you're doing a lot more shows. You're getting the extra training. You have the guys coming in. You can pick their brain. It depends how you look at it, and I saw it as an opportunity, and I jumped on it. I absolutely loved it. So it was a really cool thing for me to be part of that history. I learned so much from so many people during my time. Met a lot of great people, had a really good time while I was there. So it was definitely a huge plus for me, and I absolutely loved it. And it was just a good time.
Who helped you down in OVW, and who was in charge back then?
Obviously it was Danny Davis. He was the main guy there. But you had like Al Snow, and there were just so many people who would just come by and say hi and stop by. You know what I mean? You never knew who was going to come down, and you can always pick people's brain, and that's what it was really about. You know what I mean? Just trying to extract information, and people would just they'd obviously come up to you, and if you wanted it, they tell you what they thought, and that was just a huge thing, and that was one of the cool things about that place. You just had people stopping by all the time. So guys from the past, present, and even up and coming guys. So it was just really cool to sort of tap into different people on their thoughts and everything else. Plus, just getting that experience and just being able to try it out, put it out there.
How much did OVW then help you?
I think it helps. It helps a lot. You know what I'm saying? Because the more you do anything, it's just like the more perfect practice that you have, the better you're going to be at anything. You know what I mean? You've got to really make sure that you do have that perfect practice. And with any sort of developmental territory, that's basically what it is, and what's going to give you. The more you're perfecting your craft, just like bodybuilding. I worked it out the other day. It's like 2,400,000 hours. It's just a crazy amount of hours that I put into crafting what I have. And it's the same with professional wrestling or anything you do in life. The more you put into it, the better you're going to be at it. So that was just one of the opportunities that I had
It's not about practice. It's about practice perfect.
That's exactly what it's about. You know it.
That is so great you mentioned that, because I always said that you could practice, but it's about trying to practice perfect. That's what gets the most potential. What a great time, Rob. Jay Bradley, Crimson, even Doug Williams was part of OVW back in the day when you were there. And you mentioned Al Snow. What a great talent. What a great person. What a great teacher.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim, we got to wrap this up. So can we do, I'm sorry for that. Can we,
No, not at all. Let's do that. We'll end it right now. So, Generation Iron, Natty for Life will be available on video on demand on Friday, July 31st. With Rob Terry here. And next time, Rob, we'll talk a little bit how Chris Jericho wanted you to be his bodyguard type, and Full Throttle Pro Wrestling, tag team champs with Demas. And thank you so much, Rob.
Thank you very much. My absolute pleasure. You take it easy, Jim. Right?
Okay.
Thank you.